Hello everyone, welcome back to Limba classes, and today we are presenting you this chapter named Enlightenment, and it is from MHI02. So before proceeding further, let us know a little about the background of the causes which led to this enlightenment so that we can better understand this topic. So as you I think already know about the Renaissance period. So, in medieval Europe, the church allowed very little freedom of thought to the individual. There was the rule of church, basically Roman Catholic churches, and people were not given that much of freedom of liberty so that they could think and imply that thought in their daily lives. They has to follow whatever the church orders. So they do everything in the name of the God without calculating it or without judging it on the facts available. So that period basically was the period of the rule of church, and it is also known as a dark age. Dark age because there was widespread crimes, there was no proper rules and regulations, there was no freedom for the people. All kind of social evils were present in that time of Europe. So that is why the name we give to that age is dark age. So when the time from the dark age, this renaissance came and then this enlightenment came, it also lead, you have already learnt about the French Revolution. So this enlightenment was a huge reason for this French Revolution and then American Revolution, when people finally started thinking about themselves and not just the divine things. So, in medieval Europe, the church allowed very little freedom to thought of the individual. This kind of suppressed environment inspired many people in Europe to think for themselves and to boldly question the authority of the established institutions, means churches. This upsurge of public sentiment to advance human knowledge was accelerated by printing press, because prior to that there was not the discovery of printing press. Now the ideas of new thinkers can be easily accessible in different parts of the country and also in world, because the press was invented and printing the new thoughts can be read in a book form. So, the Enlightenment's emphasis on reason shaped philosophical, political, and scientific discourse from the late 17th to the early 19th century. And due to this Enlightenment, we in the coming times will see many discoveries took place in the Europe, basically UK. So, origins, the first topic is origins of enlightenment. The age of enlightenment was influenced by the growth in scientific knowledge that began in the mid 17th century. People looked for reasons why things happened the way they did. Modern chemistry and biology grew out of this questioning, and the existing knowledge about astronomy and physics was greatly improved. So, here we took a note that obviously, when you start thinking, when you don't, for example, if it is raining outside and you just think, okay, it's raining, then you can never know the causes and the circumstances for that rain. But once you start thinking that why this rain is happening, then only you can conclude the causes and circumstances and the reasons for that. So this applies here also, that this is the reason of enlightenment led to the discovery, it led to the promotion of scientific temper in the people. Now people started thinking and they brought up new philosophies also. You might have heard also, like Galileo Galilei, Aristotle, Plato. So these were the thinkers of that time which changed the circumstances which prevent in that society of Europe at that time, and they started and they created the love for humans. They started praising that we should, the people should think about themselves first. During the 18th century, people began to look at the whole world and the whole people in different way. The French philosopher and writer Francois Marie Voltaire attacked the authority of the religious institutions and the governments of the day. So obviously, when the thinking developed, people started criticizing the government and the way they were functioning. Jean-Jacques Rousseau criticized civilization itself, saying that people should not obtain more possession or power than needed. Obviously, when the in that time, in the dark age, the church was supreme authority. So all the power of the society was held in will on the like the heads of the church, which is the pope. Both challenged the idea of absolute monarchy and the traditional that the nobility and clergy were entitled to specific privileges. Other great thinkers of the Enlightenment included the economist Adam Smith, the historian David Hume, the philosopher Immanuel Kant, and the writers Mary Holscraft and Samuel Johnson. And like below this, it's a graphic image. You can just take a screenshot of this, and now we move further. Legacy of the Enlightenment. So, philosophers and scientists of the period widely circulated their ideas through meetings at scientific academies, Mason, Masonic lodges, literary salons, coffee houses, and in printed books, journals, and pamphlets. So what happens, prior to this enlightenment, people were not allowed to gather. They were not allowed to discuss the rules and regulations which were framed by Catholic churches, because if you are discussing something, that means you are discussing you are raising the objection for that law, and it is considered a crime in those ages if you question the authority of the church. So when in this enlightenment age, people started gathering, they started questioning the law, they started discussing the new philosophies which emerged in this time. In the source, the manner in which this discussion took place is like coffee houses, the pamphlets, the books, because the printing press was now discovered. So the ideas traveled in huge length and breadth of the country also, and in the world also. The ideas that spread as a result weakened the authority of the church and that of absolute control of monarchy. Obviously, when people were now aware, they started talking about things, they started calculating the things based on facts, they started questioning the absurd laws framed in the name of God. Now the authority of the church is challenged. Now the people, the public, the citizen criticized the monarchy, and they said that it is very wrong if the one person is holding such amount of power, because it is not good in the willing of the people. It's called a tyranny of the rulers. So, this laid the groundwork for the political revolutions of the 18th and 19th century. As I have told you earlier, like the French Revolution took place in the 18th century, the American Revolution also. So, it can be said that the 19th century movements of liberalism and neoclassicism can trace their origins back to the age of enlightenment. The full effect of these ideas in practice came to a head during the French Revolution of 1789, although the practical limits of the idea were demonstrated during the Reign of Terror. Here, I would like to tell you a little about the French Revolution, as I think you have already read about it. So, in the French Revolution, people questioned the authority and power of the king, where the king ruled the country and there was widespread poverty. So you should also, I think, read this topic also along with this one. It was only during the reign of Napoleon Bonaparte when society was remade along rational lines and which were enshrined in the Code of Napoleon, the basis of the legal laws in many countries of the Western Europe. Still, its goal of egalitarianism attracted the admiration inspired both the Haitian War of Independence and the radical racial inclusivism of Prague's first post-independence government. Enlightened rationality gave way to the wildness of romanticism, but 19th century liberalism and classicism, not to mention 20th century modernism, all owe to a heavy debt to the thinkers of the Enlightenment. Obviously, like when the widespread knowledge, there was widespread printing available, and hence the ideas traveled in like long length and breadth. So these formed the basis of all the revolutions which took after this era. Code of Napoleon we have covered this. Now we coming to the topic, the main sources behind enlightenment was. So first is Renaissance, second is scientific revolution, third is industrial revolution, fourth one is rise of working class, fifth is rise of new class, that is the middle class, and the sixth one is weakening of feudal system. I told you in the starting of this video about the Renaissance. So Renaissance is the inaugurated the system of questioning the established beliefs. When people started questioning the laws which were framed by the institutions, and in the Europe these institutions were churches. Second is scientific revolution. So where existing all the beliefs came under attack and has to be proved with reasons. The third one is industrial revolution. So industrial revolution has brought great changes and helped to determine people thought. Where people worked in the industries, they get in contact with new peoples, they get in contact with new ideologies. The fourth is rise of working class that opposed existing autocratic political system. Fifth is rise of new class called middle class and their contribution in Renaissance, because these were the people who indulged in these gatherings and they helped in the spread of these new terminologies and ideologies. So the weakening of feudal system in many parts of Europe and change of political system in some parts. Obviously when people questioned the authority of the ruler, then ruler is in no circumstances, in no position to rule the people when the people are against him. Because people were now enlightened, they now started questioning things, they now asked for the equal rights and their equal share. Now it's another graphic image. You can also take the screenshot of this. Here the things explained are long ranged causes, then mediate causes, and it lead to the French Revolution. Then immediate effects. What are the effects of French Revolution? And then long range effects. You can just mention these things in your answers to improve the quality of your answers. So the Enlightenment took hold in most European countries, often with a specific local emphasis. The cultural exchange during the age of Enlightenment ran between particular European countries and also in both directions across the Atlantic. So here the printing press helped a lot in spreading these new ideologies in many parts of that country also and that world also. There were two distinct lines of enlightenment though. The radical enlightenment advocated democracy. So democracy is also a byproduct of enlightenment. You can conclude the changes, this one enlightened movement lead to many drastic changes in the coming times. Whether it's 18th, 19th century revolutions or this huge terminology which we know today as a democracy. Humanism also. So the Enlightenment took hold in most European countries, often with a specific local emphasis. So democracy and the individual liberty, freedom of expressions, eradication of religious authority. A second, more moderate variety sought accommodation between reform and the traditional system of power and faith. So here we are talking about two lines or two groups of enlightenment. The one group advocated the new ideologies, that democracy, individual liberty, or in conclusion we can say it talked about humanism or human approach. And the second group, it was of a reformist nature, which wanted that the whole system of the old traditional system should not be eradicated, else we should bring some changes to improve it. In spite of creating the whole new system, we should bring some changes in the old system. Like the social levels, we could eliminate the social levels and can continue the old system. So these are the two branches of enlightenment. Science came to play a leading role in enlightenment discourse and thought. Enlightenment has long been hailed as the foundation of modern Western political and intellectual culture. It brought political modernization to the West. In religion, Enlightenment era, commentary was a response to the preceding century of religious conflict in Europe, because Renaissance and Enlightenment are the byproducts of the age of a religious age, which is also known as a dark age, when there was a rule of a church. Historians of race, gender, and class note that Enlightenment ideals were not originally envisioned as universal in the today's sense of the word, although they did eventually inspire the struggles for rights of people of color, women, working masses. Most Enlightenment thinkers did not advocate equality for all, regardless of race, gender, or class, but rather insisted that rights and freedoms were not hereditary. So the this democracy change which we today see, like the democracy we have today, it is not like that this democracy was present in that time also. Things change, and change take time. It is not like something happens overnight. So there is, according, like, since the societies keep changing, the mentality and the thought process of the people keep changing, hence that term, that ideology also keeps changing. So earlier that was not it is not necessary or important that in the very first movement people were asking for the equal rights for women, people were asking for the vote for women, or equality of untouchabilities, or eradication for those people. So it took time, and with a slow process it took form of the democracy which we see today. Now we talk about the impact. We talked about the consequences and the fact which helped in the enlightenment of the Europe. Now we talk about what impact it brought in the European society. So the ideas of the Enlightenment played a major role in inspiring the French Revolution, which began in 1789. So the very immediate cause is, like, very immediate result of the Enlightenment was the French Revolution, where people demand that the king cannot rule the public in very barbaric manner, which began in 1789. And this French Revolution emphasized the rights of common men as opposed to exclusive rights of elites. As such, they laid the foundation of modern, rational, democratic societies. However, historians of race, gender, and class note that Enlightenment ideas were not originally envisioned as universal in today's sense of word, although they did eventually inspire the struggles for right of the people of color, women, or the working masses. Most Enlightenment thinkers did not advocate equality for all, regardless of race, gender, class, but rather insisted that rights and freedoms were not hereditary. This perspective directly attacked the traditional exclusive position, the European aristocracy, but was still largely focused on expanding the rights of white males of a particular social standing. So here this chapter is ended, and you can take the notes from this YouTube channel, and regarding any query you can just post your comments below. Thank you so much for watching this video. Have a great day.